I think we on the podcast are realistic in SEO's prominence in a digital marketing campaign. It is important, but if it's the only thing you're doing, that's not a good idea, right? But I think voice search, especially as things are growing, this is a great opportunity to maybe try something a little different that will probably eventually become the standard to help your SEO, help get answers for your business, etc.
The following marketing information and discussion is provided for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as professional guidance or consultancy. Just enjoy the show.
Hello everyone, welcome to The Buyer's Journey by Comexis, a discussion-based podcast focused on gaining your business a competitive advantage by eliminating marketing confusion and making your digital marketing work for you. I'm Matthew McGroarty, the social media content producer here at Comexis.
I am Len Moore, the managing partner at Comexis.
And I'm Josh Lyons, the digital marketing coordinator here at Comexis.
So today we are talking about voice search and I guess also broadly voice assistance. And how voice search, how powerful it is, how useful it can or cannot be, some of our thoughts on voice search, and then ways that you can take advantage of voice search from an SEO perspective and the like. But first, I kind of want to start off with, for those of you who are uninformed, the big question is, what are voice assistants if for some reason you've lived under a rock and you're not sure what those are? And then what is voice search? So Len, why don't you start off? Can you tell me a little bit about voice assistants and what voice search is?
I mean, voice search is it's pretty simple. You're speaking into Alexa, you're speaking into Siri, you're speaking into Google Home, and you're just asking it a question, almost much the same way you would go to a search engine and ask a question via a search engine. You're just doing it now via your voice. What was the second question?
Voice assistants, which actually I can just pick up from there. So you mentioned a couple, Alexa, Google Home, Siri on your iPhone is a voice assistant. Generally speaking, voice assistants are just anything where you use your voice and then there's some machine learning or AI or program, whatever, that is pulling whatever information that you've spoken into it. So for example, like Microsoft Windows has Cortana, phones have Siri, then obviously Alexa, Google Home are two of the really big ones. Before we get into some really great stats from eMarketer, what do each of us kind of think of voice search and voice assistants in general? Like, do any of us use them, et cetera, et cetera?
Oh, I use it. I definitely use Alexa quite a bit for, quite a few things. I think it's tremendous. I don't see us ever really turning around and going away from it. It's funny. I heard a while ago, and I thought the person was nuts when they told me this. They said they were at a symposium or something, and it was like some data scientist up there talking about things. They actually said coming in the future, you'll have a computer with no screen. You'll be voice interacting with certain types of things, and I was like, it didn't make any sense. But then when I kind of listened to what he was saying, he's like, they're actually, what you look at your computer right now, it's not what it is. Everything will be voice propelled, and some things may, I guess, visually appear wherever it's going to visually appear. But I did hear that. I don't know if that makes any sense whatsoever about voice search, but he told me this when voice search was kind of just in the dawn of it, just people talking about it 7-8 years ago. Here's what's coming from it. And I thought it was really interesting he said that. So I guess as we progress all the way down, think about it. You're asking Alexa a question, right, in your house, and you're not visually looking at anything. Now, I know they do have, Alexa has the new screen now. I forget what it's called. It came out last year.
Alexa has one, and then I think
Facebook has one too.
Facebook and Alexa work together for I think it's Facebook Portal, I think it is.
Is that what it is?
Because it was the voice.
But there's definitely one you can buy. There's definitely an Echo you can buy with a screen.
Yeah, there's ones with screens, definitely.
Yeah, it's Facebook Portal.
Yeah, because they worked with Alexa because obviously they don't want to give business to Google.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, but I think that just kind of plays into where if you're thinking about it, you're actually doing research on things, and if you are sitting in your kitchen and you're asking Alexa questions, you may have your phone in your hand, but you're not really interacting with a screen, which I find really interesting. So I think there's always going to be some sort of screen apparatus of some sort, so I thought what he was telling me was a little different, but I just found it interesting that it's funny that you have to listen to people when they're at these shows and they're at these symposiums and they're talking about things that are coming down the road to really pay attention, because everything that you hear does eventually happen. So there's my thought on voice search. Really doesn't make any difference, or is not really relevant to what you've asked, but there you go.
No, I think it was great. Go ahead, Josh. What do you think?
I use voice search every day. I have Apple CarPlay, so every day I'm telling my car in the morning what I want to listen to, or if I need to call someone, it's instead of going to my phone and pressing who I want to call, I'll just say, hey, can you call like Matt? And immediately it understands it, and I'm talking to someone. Obviously it's for hands-free reasons, but it's also nice that it recognizes who you're listening to and what you need. I use voice search almost every day at the end of the day before I go to sleep, because I always tell Siri to set an alarm for me in the morning, to set like 5 alarms for me in the morning, because I tend to forget if I don't, to do it manually. But it's used almost every day in my life for a variety of different reasons, whether I'm asking Siri questions, or even if I'm sitting in front of my TV using my Chromecast or my Fire Stick, and I just talk into it, say, hey, like, I want to listen to ESPN, and they just flip it right to ESPN. So like, even not only on phones, but you're seeing it now on TV remotes and other things where it's all voice controlled. Yeah. Because instead of flipping the channel, you just tell them what channel you want to listen to, and it completely makes the process so much easier. So it's just completely taking over our world.
Yeah, there's no question. And I think the best part about it is that I'm sure we'll probably dive into some stats here I haven't looked at. Oh, there you go. There are some stats we're looking, but we haven't scratched the surface of what this thing's going to be. I mean, it's such an integral part where it's almost to the point where you tell somebody, I wouldn't know what to do without my phone. You're going to move to the point with voice search. It's going to be, I wouldn't know what to do without voice search. And I think the very first the very first Alexa is actually going into, I think, Ford production cars this year. Alexa is now built into the Ford cars. So 2020, you can interact with your Alexa on the car. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, it's great. Christ, we're becoming so lazy.
I am the contrarian here. I don't like voice search or voice assistants unless I am specifically using one in my car to call someone. Because I use an iPhone, and to get to the contacts and then get to the person is so many touches that it's easier for me to, even though it's not technically hands-free, just to hit the button and say call whomever. But otherwise, I personally don't want to put a Google Home or Alexa into my house. I don't like that they're always listening to you technically.
I'm going to tell you what I told somebody this week.
Go ahead.
You got that phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
That phone's listening to you.
Technically, no. So
not only is it listening to you, but it's GPSing you.
Well,
it knows where you are.
It is GPS.
And it's listening to you.
It is GPS.
It's worse than the actual Alexa.
I cannot deny that it's GPSing me, because that's 100% accurate. It is technically always listening to you if you keep Hey Siri on to specifically react to when you say Hey Siri rather than hitting the button. Otherwise, it, theoretically speaking, in big quotes, should not be listening to you all the time. But anyway, so you're not completely wrong, but I personally just don't like it.
Well,
that said,
they listen to me all the time because I have Hey Siri on, and I use Hey Siri on every day. So,
but I can't deny that it's very convenient.
Well, it's the same thing as everybody has problems right now with how Google's harvesting data. They're looking at what they're paying attention to what you're searching for. They're harvesting that data that they then can repurpose for their pay-per-click, for their advertising platforms, and so forth. It's the same thing with voice search. They're listening to what you're doing because they're trying to gather. It's a genome type product. They're trying to gather enough information to give you the right answers and so forth. So you are right. Anybody who says, well, Siri's listening to me and Alexa's listening to me, it is, and and it is gathering the data. And wait till that storm erupts when you find out that they've gathered everything you've been talking about. They're saying, well, there's already been a couple cases.
So there was a couple things, like there was an Amazon article that came out. I might summarize some of this briefly in the podcast notes, so keep a lookout for that. Basically, I think it was Alexa. They in like their terms of service, they didn't mention that people, like human people, were going to be analyzing certain portions of recorded audio so that they could then make the responses better. So they ended up changing their terms of service so that it basically like it either said something like that or it said something to the extent of like they're not going to be doing this anymore. And then you saw like Apple and Google and some other voice assistant platforms changed their terms of service to either mention it explicitly or to remove the idea that is happening at all, and hopefully therefore actually removing it from happening. I don't remember the specifics, but it was something like that where you saw one company was getting bad press about it, and then all of them went, uh-oh, we need to change this in our terms of service. But that's kind of beside the point. At the end of the day, tons of people use them. Tons of people really like how convenient they are. And at the end of the day, no matter what my personal feelings are on voice search, it is very clear that voice search is going to be slowly building and sort of leading the way in Google search going forward. Obviously, people are always going to be typing things on their phone, et cetera, but voice search is certainly jumping in popularity and will continue to do so, which is a great lead-in to some excellent eMarketer stats. So this eMarketer piece will be linked in the blog description, so check for it there as well. But here, just a couple excerpt stats from this piece. So 111.8 million people in the United States will use a voice assistant at least monthly this year, 2019, up 9.5% from 102 million in 2018, and this amounts to 39.4% of US internet users and 33.8% of overall population. By 2021, the number of US voice assistant users will reach 122.7 million, representing 42.2% of US internet users and 36.6% of the US population. People are using voice assistants, as we've talked about before, for a lot of things, for asking questions to Google, to Alexa, et cetera, but some of the top tasks include getting directions, making phone calls, that's what I use it for, listening to music, finding nearby stores, according to Social Lens research study conducted in August 2018. And voice assistants also cut across various demographics. For example, there will be a 57.6 million female and 54.2 million male voice assistant users in the US this year, and this equates to 34.4% of women and 33.3% of men who use voice assistants at least monthly. That said, use seems to skew slightly to female, as we can see with those numbers. It's about 1 million more female users. But the percentage of males using voice assistants has accelerated in recent years. And today, most people are using their voice assistants on smartphones and smart speakers, with smartphones being the most common. Obviously, most people have phones, so that makes sense. And then also, so for example, the US penetration rate for smartphones is 70.5%, and most models now come equipped with or can download voice assistant software. Smart speakers are also on the rise. They forecast that there will be 77.6 million users in the US this year, representing 27.3% of US internet users and 23.5% of the population. By 2021, this will grow to 88.7 million users, or 30.5% of US internet users and 26.5% of the population. So that big number dump right there, that whole little thing, basically adds up to why smart speakers, why it's important to potentially think about voice search as an avenue for your business, because at the end of the day, by 2021, more than a quarter of the US population is going to have smart speakers, and 30.5% of US internet users will be using smart speakers, not including those using them on smartphones, right? So we can obviously see really big numbers there. What do we think about this, guys?
We just mentioned how now Alexa's going to be, and I'm pretty sure it's Alexa's going to be in Ford cars. So you're talking, the people don't even have a voice assistant at all in their home, or some type of speaker in their home, but they go out and buy an F-150 truck. Guess what? Now you own one. So to me, I actually think, take away people like Matt who refuse to have it in his house. I think this is going to turn into having a computer, having a tablet, having a TV in your house. It's going to be there. I mean, you're talking, this is your new alarm clock, this is your new radio. I mean, I know personally in our house, I had Sonos. I had a million different apparatuses around the house to get things going. I have one Alexa right now. The speaker's as good, if not better, than anything I've ever owned. I run Sirius through it. I run Spotify through it, Pandora, every single thing I possibly want, I run through that one speaker. I think these numbers are, I think they're light. And yeah, to kind of go on to what you were saying, I mean, you have to start mapping out a voice strategy for marketing in the year 2020. And it's, everything you do should be optimizing right now for voice search with these numbers, because they are astronomical. Wow, it's amazing. I remember when these things came out a few years ago, it was like, they were clunky, they were clumsy. Remember you would ask things and it was like, these things are kind of, even Siri, but now it's amazing. These things are, it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I sort of thought about that sort of makes sense to me is I'm sort of treating the whole voice assistant, voice search, sort of just like the early stages of like cell phones in general, where, you know, the large majority had a phone, but when smartphones started to come into play, you started to see a slow, like a slow increase of people transitioning from just like the standard phone to a smartphone. And then as the technology got greater, the percentage just kept rising and rising to a point where we said, what, it's now like 70% of people have a smartphone?
70.5%.
So now you have, there was already a 9.5% increase from 2018 to 2019 in people that use voice assistant. When they start realizing how more advanced it's getting, you're going to start seeing that number creep up to that number you expected it to be. Where now that if they're gonna be in Ford cars and people start realizing the importance of it in their everyday lives, they either just don't know about it or they don't know how advanced it's getting. So in the next year or two, that 39% could end up being 50, 55, 60% in the next couple years. So
See, I like your smartphone analogy, but part of me also like when I think of smartphones, I think like the reason they became super popular is because you basically at this point you need some kind of cell phone in your life to continue on in your day-to-day life. Like it's mandatory. And
the smartphone rose because of one reason. The smartphone rose because it was the first thing you could turn around and take pictures instantaneously. That's the core reason why the smartphone became the smartphone. I'll never forget a gentleman named Jim Parmalee. Back in 1998, I was in a meeting, way back. I was in a meeting with mutual fund managers, T. Rowe Price, it was Baltimore, and he sat there and he was calling it CDMA. So 1998, you know, you guys are not too far off from being born right around there. So
I was too.
He was talking about how every single thing you had in the phone, everything all around you was all going to be in a phone. People like giggled. Like, what are you talking? That's not even possible. And he was like, it's coming. And all the smart people were investing in all of those telecom stocks, is what they were called back then. But it was very interesting how it was. And I remember he kept coming back to a point, you're gonna be able to take pictures and video. And they're like, what do you mean? And they're like, you're gonna hold your phone and you're gonna take pictures and they're gonna be crystal clear and they're gonna, and that's what it was. And I'll never forget, that stuck with me. And every single time they would say the rise of the smartphone, and why do you think Apple and everybody makes such a big production about what the camera's going to look like and what, think about it, that's the very first thing they come in when they talk about. So the rise of the smartphone became the convenience of having a phone. The rise of the voice search is the convenience
of having voice, and that's exactly where the correlation came to me, which was people, you know, they'll type into their phone on Google, or they'll go in to call someone on their phone. When more people start realizing how accessible it is to just say, "Hey Siri," or to just, you know, tell Alexa what you need to do, when more people find how accessible it is and the technology continues to get more advanced, that number is going to skyrocket just like the phone.
I do think you had a really good point with the smartphone analogy in regards to like price, because like one of the things, especially with the most recent iPhones, like you have like the $2,000-ish models, and then you have like the XR or whatever that's like $700, which becomes the most popular phone because it's really cheap.
Right.
I think voice assistants already are there in that the base model, like I think they were selling some of the Alexa Dots for like $20.
Yeah.
And like that pricing is fantastic because it gives you exactly what you need at a relatively reasonable price without, you know, obviously smartphones are expensive for many reasons. But I do agree that at least in that avenue, they're definitely hitting out of the park.
Yeah, for $100 you're getting a great Alexa. I mean, you don't need anything more than a $100 Alexa. You really don't. You can put a few of them in your house, but you are right. The cost point is great. Anyone can come in and grab it. So that's actually a good point.
And when the technology gets more advanced, you're going to see things skyrocket in price too, where you're now seeing, I'm pretty sure I've saw videos or they're talking about models where you're going to be able to like tell like your kitchen to like turn on the oven or to like turn the lights on and off, and like eventually, maybe in 10 years, like that's going to be normalized in households. That's when the price skyrockets and you're not spending $20 on a dot. You're spending thousands of dollars on like kitchen appliances being able to listen to your voice.
What you're doing is then you're probably going to spend the same amount of money on the dot. You might spend more on your appliances, but they'll probably get you with a subscription-based app on your phone or through the dot that will let you do all of that stuff.
Yeah.
For however much a month or something like that.
And there is your idea.
And bam!
Who comes up with that idea? General Electric just heard it and said, that's a great idea, we're doing it.
General Electric's probably had that idea for like 10 years.
They need it because they're in trouble.
I'll take like 0.001% royalty on that idea. Thank you very much.
There's enough apps where you can control your lights and turning on and off and your house door
there's
locking.
a lot of stuff you can control.
There's no way somebody hasn't had that idea already.
I have that at my home now. I use the August app, so I have the ability to unlock and lock my door from my phone. And it's great because, if my keys are in my pocket or if I forget my keys at home, it's a simple touch of a button, put in a passcode, door unlocks. After a minute, it automatically locks, so you never have to worry about your house being unlocked.
I don't like that either.
Alexa has that for the lights. You can do the whole. You can buy the outlets. And just Alexa, turn the lights on, turn the TV on. So that stuff's all here.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think at the end of the day, you're either going to have something like that where you're plugging it in directly, or you're going to have Philips bulbs. I think it's the Hue brand bulbs where you can make a network of these bulbs and then just through the smartphone app, turn them on and off, etc.
And it all started with the clapper.
Yeah.
It all started.
So on to some voice search SEO things. This article, a lot of what we're going to be pulling from is from Christopher Jones on Search Engine Land. We're going to get into some of his thoughts and ideas for how to make your voice search SEO really good. But there's two things I want to do first. The first is he brings up a great stat. ComScore forecasts that 50% of all online searches will be performed by voice search by 2020. So if you heard our stats 5 minutes ago, we were talking about the explosive growth of voice assistants and voice search. Now you have the 50% of all online searches performed by voice search by 2020. And Len, can you remind me what the Google numbers were in regards to how many searches you actually might be able to get to your website?
50% of all searches that are done via phone or desktop on Google search engine, they will not click any links. They won't do anything, which I really think has a direct correlation with voice. Unless what the Spark Toro report, Rand Fiskin again, unless something here is not hooking up, I know that they're thinking it's a Google conspiracy, and it is to a point, but I definitely think that has a direct correlation with voice. It has to be the obvious. That's why I go through analytics, I'm looking at everything. So how are we going to track voice on analytics? I know that there's some companies out there that are starting to do this, but on Search Engine Console and so forth, how many times does Alexa, Siri, Google Home, how many times are they retrieving that data, from your website and exposing it? Now, the one thing Google is going to be hesitant on that, doing it, because if I'm correct, I think Google is the third leading voice smart speaker and voice assistant out there, led by Siri, which because you have the most phones, so Siri would be number one. Number two would be Alexa.
That would make sense.
So Google's not going to be really happy, and those two search results are generated by Bing. So Google may not necessarily be in a big rush, although they're going to get it on there.
I've heard their smart speakers are like the AI in them is some of the best for actually giving you accurate information.
Who, Google?
I've heard
Oh,
Google's,
I can believe.
However,
you're pulling Google search.
That doesn't mean that they're the most sold. It just happens to mean that they're
the most
network is the
most
best
effective.
Well, because Apple tried that 2 years ago and it was an unmitigated disaster. Their smart speaker was it was horrible. Yeah. People were trashing it. Like, this is really bad.
Well, because it was just a little bit more advanced than Siri, and I use Siri to make phone calls, but I'm not using Siri to ask deep questions that'll just show me some search results on my phone, whereas Google, because Google knows Google's algorithm, they have access to their featured snippets and stuff, they naturally have the ability to pull better information.
A little off topic, but is Google Lens still a thing?
Google Glass?
Or Google Glass?
I'm pretty sure they stopped because people really did not like the idea of having the ability to just take pictures with your...
Because I wasn't sure if that was correlated to the technology wasn't advanced enough where the Google Glass would have sort of a correlation to what you're telling it to do. I don't know.
They spun it back in. I know for an absolute fact, and you'll see the story pop up from time to time. Google, I know Amazon, multiple people, even Apple, it's the contact lens. And they've been working on that forever. You're gonna, like the Terminator, you're gonna have put that contact lens in and your phone is gone. And everything's right there. And that's where they said, you're like, well, that's crazy. No, you'll activate, I'm sure you'll say activate whatever, or hey Google, or hey Siri, and it comes up in your eye, which people are like, well, that's crazy. Is it? And you talk into a black box and they're talking back to you. Was that crazy 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Of course it was.
And that was the whole idea, where it's all from your voice. So I wonder if the reason why they stopped it was due to the technology not being there.
It wasn't what it needed to be. I know that it was I know there was definitely some privacy things. People didn't like that.
There's a lot of like, once you start putting things in glasses where you can't actually tell what it is, because like obviously your phone has a camera on it, but if I walk into a bathroom and I have my phone out and I look like I'm taking pictures, people are gonna know. If I walk in with my regular pair of glasses, nobody's gonna know. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
no,
there's a lot of weird privacy things that will probably have to get legislated out at some point. But I do agree. I think the tech just wasn't there yet either.
Tech wasn't there yet. And this is, so we did talk about, how many searches and so forth. I don't know if we were going to get into this, but this is, again, I feel like every single time I'm saying this, I'm beating down on SEO and I don't want to. And I know we'll talk about, how to SEO it, but again, if you're engaged in a search engine optimization SEO campaign, and it's a large proportionate amount of your effort and revenue that you're adding, to have an internal team, whatever, think about the changes right now. I mean, at the end of the day, again, I am at my heart an SEO person. I've been doing it 15 years. I mean, how deep do you really have to SEO like voice search? If people are going to start leaning on voice search more than they are scrolling on the screen, and I think that may take some time as you're really researching a product or you're really researching a service. I mean, you really have to be concerned if this is all you're doing right now. So I really do believe that we are moving away from the traditional SEO model, and I think voice search is yet another nail in the coffin on what's happening with SEO. But again, there is ways you can optimize for it. I wouldn't say don't do it, and so forth.
Well, that's actually why I wanted to bring it up, because I think we on the podcast are realistic in SEO's prominence in a digital marketing campaign. It is important, but if it's the only thing you're doing, that's not a good idea, right? But I think voice search, especially as things are growing, this is a great opportunity to maybe try something a little different that will probably eventually become the standard to help your SEO, help get answers for your business, etc. So for voice search SEO, what is kind of like the baseline things that we would suggest for somebody trying to optimize their voice search SEO?
One of the easiest things you can do is literally write your metadata, which is the title tag and the description. A lot of people say Google doesn't really index the descriptions. Yes, they do. They do use it as a ranking factor. I know people think they don't, but they do, in my opinion. And start asking questions. So think about the questions you would ask Alexa, ask Siri, and so forth. And don't be afraid to use that as your title search, because that is one of the fastest ways to go in and try to grab some of that voice traffic. Make sure your page loads fast, because Google's going to come on, they're going to crawl it. A lot of your standard SEO practices do apply to voice search, but I think one of the little hacks and tricks that we figured out was if you write your metadata in the form of a question and answer, that really, really works well.
So this Christopher Jones piece that I mentioned a little bit ago, he has some really interesting thoughts on ways to SEO for voice search to like the next level. So we've always talked about make sure that your content is in the form of the question, make sure your metadata and stuff are in the forms of a question. But he kind of goes one step beyond, which I really like. So I wanted to share some excerpts from his search engine land piece and then kind of get our thoughts on it. So the one in particular that I want to mention is that your content is more likely to be featured in a snippet if it's presented as a paragraph, list, or table. So if you want to go for a paragraph, try to keep it below 50 words and make the sentences brief. And then you should also optimize, obviously, as you should be doing anyway, the paragraph with your targeted keyword. Lists and tables are likely to get featured as well, since they're easy to follow logically and visually. And whichever direction you go through content, make sure it's easy to understand and free of advanced terminology. So basically keep it as broad as possible. Also, one thing that I like here is he's focusing on snippets, because at the end of the day, when you're Googling for something, it's more likely that when you're Google voice searching for something, it's more likely that they're going to pull the information from a snippet of some kind.
Absolutely, yeah.
To provide it to you. So if you're optimizing to get into a snippet while keeping voice search in mind, you're obviously going to be hitting it even better. That said, one of the things we always talk about with featured snippets is the content is really the most important thing. And he has some great numbers here. About 30% of featured snippets are pulled from the position 1, so like the first position on a web page, right? But 70% come from positions 2 through 5, which means that it doesn't matter necessarily if the information you're providing on your page is at the top of the page, as long as the content is relevant and actually answers the question or query or whatever. The content being useful and good is what ends up becoming the most important. He mentions that for long form content, things that are like 1,800 words or more, you want to have a good idea to make sure that you keep your sentences relatively short and not go super advanced with your copy. Again, you're trying to keep this as general as possible. So using specific words are good. For example, saying things that are reliable, saying things, just making sure that your terminology is kept understandable by a wider audience rather than using big words for the sake of using big words, right? And then something really interesting that I thought was that if you begin a query with what, it shows that somebody is normally looking for information, and then where is closer to like acting on intent, which I think is interesting. So he basically suggests using that idea to sort of SEO to make sure that your voice search and your SEO is compatible. I really like that.
I really like that. It's strong. Yeah.
And then this is obviously, if you're local and you're doing local SEO, he also suggests optimizing your pages in that way to make sure that you're local. Most businesses that would be using that are local businesses in particular. So just something to keep in mind. Most people, most small businesses are trying to get business from their local, people. If not, obviously being local won't necessarily help you, but just some things to keep in mind.
I mean, I think this is, if I'm correct, Christopher Jones is the man that started Pepper Jam, an SEO agency way back in the day. Bright guy. It was a good company before he sold it. They may still be a good company, don't know. I think this is all good. I mean, he's definitely way further down the road than we are on voice search. I know that this is something where, as an agency, we've just started kind of, I think everything we do have voice search. We do have an eye on it. We are optimizing sites for it. Some of this data, I'll be very honest, is definitely a little new to me. I really like the what and the where.
Yeah.
I mean, you should kind of know that anyway from being SEO, but it definitely brings it back in the focus. Again, I think everything he has written here it's strong. It's really good. Some of it, long form content, as in content, we're 1,800, but okay, getting a little in the weeds here, but it's very strong.
I think that's good for, obviously when we think of blog posts, like, blog posts, for example, for the podcast, those typically aren't longer than 300 to 400 words. But if you're, Vice, and you're writing a huge long expose piece or something like that, you might hit 1,800 pretty easily. Mm-hmm. And then it makes sense that you'd want to try and keep it as general. Obviously, I don't know how many people are going to be voice searching for a long 1,800 word Vice article, but you never know.
But that's critical because, I think the thing with voice is there's definitely a cutoff as to how long somebody will listen to something because it gets annoying after a while. If you have that voice of just talking to you over and over opposed to reading it. So it does come back to how do you optimize what the content for? How does the user want to digest what kind of content?
I just thought of something. So everybody, there's like, not this meme, but like everybody kind of complains about recipe blogs and how if you Google for recipes and you click on what the recipe is, sometimes you'll have to sit through a like 300, 400, 500 word blog post and all of that,
all the way down
and the recipe's all the way at the bottom, right? And I remember I saw somebody on Twitter, they were asking like, why are they doing this? Because you would think from an SEO perspective, it would be better to have the recipe at the front and then all of the content at the bottom, because at the end of the day, it's all still there on the page. And I remember replying back to them basically saying like, while you would think that that would be the obvious answer, it's probably better to have somebody have to scroll down to the bottom of your recipe, because at the end of the day, they're still, if they're looking for that recipe, they will probably still scroll down to get to it, whereas in most other pages, they would just leave. So you're getting more time on site. And
which is a ranking factor.
And potentially, depending on who you are and your willingness to read those blogs, you might actually read the blog first and then get down to the recipe, right? So I think the 1,800 words thing could actually be very relevant for recipes. However, I would suggest please don't make 1,800 word recipe blogs. Don't do that. Anyway, that's we went right into right field with that one.
It's fun.
So finally, we're getting to the wrap up of this section. I wanted to talk about your thoughts on how voice search could be used for lawyers and attorneys.
I think it would be questions. I don't necessarily know if it would be lawyer near me, although I think eventually that'll play in as people start leaning on voice for, to try to find something like, lawyer near the courthouse. If you're charged with a crime, a lot of times, they're going to look for lawyers that are maybe close to the courthouse because they're, you're kind of, they know the system. But I think what works here is things like, hey Siri, hey Alexa, how long does a divorce take in the state of New Jersey? Hey Siri, hey Alexa, what's the jail time for XYZ? I think asking them legal questions, really quick hit questions, hey Alexa, how much does bankruptcy cost in Camden County, New Jersey? I think optimizing for that is really, really good stuff. I think that's where you want to kind of start thinking about it. So it would almost, to make that done, I'm going to kind of go against what Christopher Jones is saying, where I almost think like you almost want to kind of write content that's specifically meant for voice. So a Q&A section and so forth, where if you can do the right markup with it, again, how much does a bankruptcy cost? Like if there's a way in which you could kind of figure out that Q&A page to be crawled and to be responsive, to, answer the questions, I think it's probably a good way to do it. I'm going off the top of my head. I'd have to think about it, but
I mean, I think
there's a
that
way
makes
to
sense.
optimize it.
And I don't think that even goes against Christopher Jones's ideas too much, because I think that is just organizing content in a way that actually is readable, which I think is kind of his point, like putting it in tables and things like that, making it as easy and logical as possible for the algorithm to read it, but also for a person to either read it or hear it, in this case, through a voice search. So I think you have a great point there. I mean, just off the top of your head, I mean, how important do you think voice search will be for lawyers going forward? Obviously, you don't have any numbers in front of you, just a thought off the top of your head.
Very important, because I think that, unless somebody has a major situation, they're dealing with a DUI and they have to get an answer right away, or, they were charged with a crime, a lot of times people will do their research on an attorney. They will do research. Divorce, unless you walk in, and again, I know we've mentioned this in other podcasts, you walk in, your husband or wife are cheating, and you want a divorce right away because it's been a bad marriage. But a lot of times, a lot of cases that come to attorneys, people are doing their research. And as voice search grows into becoming a better, research platform, again, short answers, I think that it's a critical part, for an attorney. It's a critical part for a lot of different types of businesses. But for attorneys, I think voice search has a lot of potential, so long as you're able to put the right, research in front of the person looking.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick break and go to our Ads 101 segment for this week, and we'll be right back shortly. Welcome to Ads 101, a podcast within a podcast that gives explanations of both fundamental and complicated marketing topics.
Today we're answering the question, what is geotargeting?
Geotargeting, sometimes referred to as location targeting, is a marketing tactic used to deliver content to an individual based on their geographic location.
Hence the geo, as in geographic, and targeting because, well,
You're targeting the area.
Exactly. Marketers often use geotargeting to ensure that people within a specific area see an ad, though there are some uses beyond advertising.
So for example, if I'm marketing for a criminal defense attorney located in Philadelphia, I might want to geotarget ads around specific areas, like courthouses, police departments, etc., as well as specific towns, cities, and counties where I practice.
If it's the summertime and I'm an ice cream business, I might want to geotarget parks, swimming pools, baseball fields, etc., because they're physical locations where my target audience might be doing activities that might make them want to stop for a sweet treat.
Using geotargeting, anyone in those areas has a chance to see your ads when they're on Facebook, searching on Google, or whichever platform you're advertising on.
Sometimes geotargeting can work for those interested in specific locations too. For example, if someone in New Jersey does a Google search using a specific location in mind, like Philadelphia divorce attorneys, they may see ads that are being geotargeted for Philadelphia.
Google also allows you to geotarget a location and hit someone with an ad later on after they've left the area.
So if someone is within the radius of your geotargeting because they're at work, you can hit them later with an ad when they get home.
Geotargeting can be done using specific addresses, a general radius around an area, or by specific cities and states.
You can also block out areas when geotargeting to give yourself a more accurate audience.
So if you're advertising for a punk rock show this weekend,
You might want to geotarget around a cool venue without hitting the audience that's going to the opera house across the street.
though punk rock opera sounds pretty cool to me. Just saying.
In summary, geotargeting is all about hitting the people on social media or through Google PPC campaigns from within a specific area.
That's all for this week's Ads 101.
See you next time.
All right, welcome back to the Buyer's Journey News Roundup. That's, again, the tentative title until I think of something that sounds more interesting. So today we got 4 interesting stories, 2 of which are focused on Instagram in particular. So we're going to talk about them now. So Instagram is launching a create mode with on this day throwbacks. This is from Josh Constant on TechCrunch. So, quote, Instagram has finally turned Throwback Thursday into an official feature. It's part of the new Instagram Create mode that launches today in Stories, bringing the app beyond the camera. Create makes Instagram a more omni-purpose social network with the flexibility to adapt to a broader range of content formats. So, for now, the highlight of Create is I'll quote, on this day option that shows a random feed post you shared on the same calendar date in the past, so basically Throwback Thursday. You can tap the dice to view a different one on this day post, and once you find one you could prefer, you share it to your stories as an embedded post that people can open. And the idea here is to help people convert their old, impermanent content into fresh, ephemeral content. And again, that could be helpful because not everyone does something stories worthy every day. And in general, if you make a really nice piece of content, say, for example, I'm just thinking from like a lawyer perspective, if you shared some nice content on, I don't know, divorce or bankruptcy, and you shared it on your Instagram feed a year ago and it's still relevant and nice, it doesn't hurt to share it again. Maybe it's, I don't know, divorce season. That seems really morbid.
I don't think there's anything nice about divorce and bankruptcy.
Well, that's true, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
If there's some trending story or for some reason you shared it during the season last time.
You got like an award or something you wanted to highlight again.
Well, or even like, you know, if you focus on personal injury or something and you're talking about like in the winter, like skidding in ice and like weather safety. Well, now you don't need to repost it because it's already on your Instagram. So something like that is kind of the idea here. So what do we think, guys?
It's good. It's the same thing as Facebook stories. What is it? Facebook does the
memories.
The memories. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. It's Facebook doing the same thing. It's congratulations. They're doing the same thing on Facebook. It's okay. I get it.
What do you think, Josh?
It's just one less step for me to not have to go to Time Hop to see all my previous pictures and posts. It's just eventually Time Hop's going to be gone because every platform is going to have this some sort of aspect of a throwback or an on this day, and I'm not surprised that Instagram's doing that.
So our next Instagram story is that Instagram is killing the following tab. This is from Sarah Perez on TechCrunch. So Instagram is removing its following tab, a feature that became better known as a stalking tool than one to aid with new account discovery as the company had intended. Today, Instagram says that its Explore tab is the go-to place to find new people, places, and hashtags to follow. Meanwhile, the following tab is now only used by a small number of people on a regular basis. So there's a couple, basically, if you went onto the following tab, you would be able to see everything. It was kind of like an activity feed for all the people that you followed. So you got to see everything they liked, everything they commented on, et cetera, et cetera. But apparently a lot of Instagram users just didn't use it, didn't know it existed. So they decided that they were going to be shutting it down. Also, there were a lot of scandalous stories of people's illicit or private activities being outed because of what they were liking and following on Instagram. So Instagram decided to shut that bad boy down forever.
That's a good
What do
idea.
you think?
That's a real good idea. I didn't even know that existed, to be honest with you.
It's super weird too, because I'm sure a lot of people didn't know it, because like, do you really care most of the time? Like, if your friends are liking something, you're probably seeing it in your Instagram feed anyway. So being able to go down a list seemed like weirdly redundant.
I'll tell you what it was used for, and I know Len probably sees this every once in a while because of like the sports background. People do that when like there's a trade rumor and you start seeing a player liking and following other accounts and teams and players.
Oh, that's
same
cool.
for
Yeah.
same for
Yeah.
other celebrities, like I don't know, for example, like Justin Bieber like followed this person, and everyone starts like making up rumors and stuff. But
You still do that on
was
Twitter though.
true.
Get that rumor mill.
It was the only reason I ever used that Instagram thing. But Instagram should change their new slogan. It should just be Instagram : saving relationships one update at a time.
Thanks, Josh. Great pitch. I don't really have strong opinions on this. I never used the feature. I'm glad it's gone, I guess. I don't know. It never brought me satisfaction through Instagram, but I'm happy just going through stories and feeds and liking pictures and stuff like that anyway. So anyway, that's that on that one. The next story is particularly spicy, however. Twitter is apologizing for targeting ads with email and phone numbers that were used for two-factor authentication. This is from Amy Gesson, who's on Marketing Land. Twitter announced on Tuesday it inadvertently used emails and phone numbers entered for two-factor authentication, a security measure users can enable to protect their accounts, to target ads to some users included in the tailored audiences and partner audiences list. Quote, this is a quote from Twitter, "When an advertiser uploaded their marketing list, we may have matched people on Twitter to their list based on the email or phone number the Twitter account holder provided for safety and security purposes. The company said, as of September 17th, the mistake had been corrected and that it was no longer using two-factor phone numbers or email addresses to target ads." So in essence, what was happening was people didn't want to give their phone number willingly to Twitter because you technically don't have to give them your phone number. If you activated two-factor authentication, which is a security measure, you gave them your phone number, and they decided that that was good enough to target you with ads, even though they didn't say they were going to do that. What do we think about this?
I guess because I'm in the industry, I'm like baffled at the amount of people that are like, this is outrageous, this is preposterous, do you believe that they target me on ads? Yeah, dude, Twitter's free, and you're on there every day using it, right? So how do you expect this company to make money? I mean, that's my thing. Like I just got done reading, and we'll probably touch on it on Facebook and how this, about the video ads were pumped up and the numbers were aligned.
Oh, we definitely need to talk about that.
We're going to talk about that
because
what they're hitting Facebook with is bullshit. It should be a lot more money than they're paying. But then I'm kind of going through the Twitter comments. I'm reading it because Twitter's fantastic for marketing news. Like I get everything I need from Twitter. And I go in there and look at it. And one guy made a comment. He goes, "I've enough with this with Facebook. Break it up, break up the company and nationalize it." Okay, dude. Okay, so that's what we're going. That's where we are in this country. If everyone has forgotten the Keynesian theory and how we're a capitalistic company or country. I'm sorry, we're here to make money. These are businesses that are here to make money. Is it a little shady what Twitter did? Yeah, it's a little shady.
Oh, incredibly.
But the fact of the matter is that the only thing that would change it is like what Spotify's doing. You got to pay $10 a month. You got to pay $10 a month to do Twitter. So what do you want to do? Where are you at? Are you concerned that L.L. Bean is now targeting you for winter boots? Is it this much of a problem? And again, I think that you have to have privacy. I agree with that because I think some things are very invasive on what Google's done, what Facebook's done. We've talked about the great hack and how the way they're marketing to people. I totally agree with all that. But what I don't agree with is people, do you believe all this has taken place, but yet they want everything for free on the internet? There is a cost to do business, people. They have to make money or they have to close their doors. People's lives rely on it. There's people who make money. There's people who are getting paid. It's its own ecosystem, and it really does help you out. You have to understand that some of your data is going to be up for grabs with advertisers because advertisers keep these people in business. That's all I'm saying. Like again, but I don't disagree that they probably should have done that. completely disagree with Facebook lying about their metric numbers
Yeah,
and all that.
we'll talk about that.
But yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on this. So.
They were putting companies out of business.
Yeah, I mean,
anyway, not Twitter, Facebook. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, can I say one thing about that?
Go ahead.
They're putting them out of business because people were doing 90 to 100% of their ad dollars on Facebook. When, if you listen to the buyer's journey, you don't go that heavy in advertising on one platform.
You do 40%. Anyway, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just gonna summarize it. Like, I agree. The privacy is important, but I'm not paying $20 a month to access the internet. They can take my phone number all they want.
You are paying money to access the internet.
I am, but I'm not gonna go onto Chrome and have a paywall to say if you want to use Chrome, you have to pay us $20 a month.
Yeah, you're in the majority. Nobody's paying money for this.
I will happily give you my phone number, so I don't have to do that.
See, here's the thing, though. Like, the issue isn't. I think people understand if you are on a social media platform, you are giving them information and they are using that information to advertise to you. The problem is that the phone numbers that were being given were for a two-factor authentication security thing, which is, for those of you who don't know, two-factor authentication is like one of the best ways to secure your accounts because it stops like 95% of hacking attempts. So it's a fantastic feature. The issue is they weren't disclosing that they were also going to use those phone numbers for advertisements. If the person had made a Twitter account and put their phone number in, like, as part of their process of signing up, because that is an option that I think you either have to do or can do, then yeah, of course Twitter's going to use that information because you made your account and you gave us your phone number when you made your account. But for two-factor, it's so different because the whole point is it's just for a security measure.
Yeah.
It's not.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I think that's where the issue's coming because, like, if I put my phone number on Facebook, if I put my phone number on Twitter outside of two-factor authentication, of course they're going to target me on it because I gave them that information for free. The two-factor authentication adds another layer of, I gave this to you specifically for a security measure, and unless you're explicitly going to tell me you're going to advertise with it too, then it should be only for this security measure. That said, I think if you give us this, it's for the security measure and advertising, tons of people would not have given them their phone number.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I've had to give Twitter my phone number multiple times, which is annoying if you run multiple accounts. But I think that's where the big issue is because it's just a violation of...
It just should be so clear because I know we have the new California law that's getting ready to roll out January 1, I think, which we probably should do a whole show on. It's the whole Privacy Act. It's really good. We have to stop making this so difficult. And this is our lovely clients, the lawyers, who are tying everything up, but they're doing a good job. It's very clear. You go to the homepage, whatever you're going to. If your data can be, blah, 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 if you give us your email or phone number. If you don't want that data, just completely, opt out, and that's it. If they agree to give it to you, take it. If they agree not to give it to you, don't take it. We're making this so complicated, and we're looking for all kinds of loopholes I was reading this new act. It's crazy. Do you know they're going to actually make you do a pop-up box on every single page of every single website?
Is this like a US GDPR kind of thing?
Yep.
Yeah.
To opt out to everything. Like,
can you do like a one-time only, like?
Don't know. I mean, they're talking, this is so tight on what kind of data you're trying to gather. And again, I think that it's warranted. And I think like what Twitter's doing is another reason where you can't do this shady stuff. Just tell people you're doing it. Just tell them just say, hey, we know this is your phone number, right? Are you okay with us ourselves or our partners? Or we'll never sell your information to partners, but we may use this for our own advertising data. Click here, yes or no.
Which is what Facebook's already doing because it's not like Facebook's ever going to sell your actual information.
No, that's their currency.
Because they can use it to better advertise.
And I think people have to understand that. You have to understand once Google gets your data, Twitter gets your data, Facebook gets your data, you made a great point. They are not looking to sell that data. That data is their data, and they're profiting off that data. Now the question is that I guess the question is what type of advertisers now have access to that data if you are advertising on those platforms. So that's, okay, so right there, that's the rub. But you are right. If Twitter harvests your data, you can make damn sure knowing that Google, Facebook, and the rest of them are never going to get that data. That's Twitter's currency right there. So, but it's a fine line we walk on. It's, guys, do you want this for free? you want all information for free? If you do, you're going to get targeted on ads. There's no way around it. It's never going to stop. Actually, I think in 3 years we're all going to be laughing about this because it's all going to be, you're just going to know.
Yeah.
And you're just going to move forward with it.
I mean, I joke about it with my friends all the time. It's just like you see, we in the office sometimes because we have Spotify on, and sometimes like they play an ad and we're like, oh, they were listening to our conversation, or oh, it's just part of it. They must have heard us talking about, like it's getting cold out and it's cold in the office, and then a winter jacket ad comes on. Like it's just. It's obviously we're advertisers, so we know it. But like even when I talk to my friends, they'll joke about it. They'll be like, "Oh, I searched for XYZ the other day, and today they're targeting me. Who would have thought?"
Well, I was really happy. One of the few times I was happy to see an ad was I was on Instagram the other day. There's a movie coming out Friday called The Lighthouse that I wanted to see. I've been busy. I haven't been thinking about it. Instagram's like, "Hey, here's another trailer for it. It comes out Friday. Oh, perfect. Now I remember." So like, yeah, you mean sometimes they got you pegged. Like that's just what happens. Like, because of all the data that they've gathered and things like that. Or it was actually probably a retargeting ad. But point is, I think for the most part, people understand that these are advertising platforms. Twitter, in this case, did something that I think was ridiculous to do because it wasn't meant. You weren't being given your phone number.
Yeah, this was wrong. Let's be clear.
Like,
this
was bad. Yeah. Anyway, we'll put a little bow on it there and move on to
Twitter did bad.
Twitter did bad for the final story.
Hold on, let me check Twitter, Rebecca.
I mean, yeah, not wrong. So our next story: Jeep is liberated from a quote imposter emoji and celebrates with hashtag This Is Not Jeep campaign. This is an article from EJ Schultz on Ad Age. There's a Twitter link in here that I will embed in the blog description. But Jeep, which fiercely protects its trademarked name, is celebrating the demotion of an emoji that is false, that it says falsely represented the all-terrain vehicle brand. Until Apple's most recent iOS update, iPhone users typing the word Jeep in a text would see an auto-populated emoji of a boxy blue car. This did not sit well inside the automaker, which referred to the emoji as, quote, imposter Jeep vehicle, end quote. But with Apple's newest iOS update, the connection between Jeep and the emoji has been removed. It still appears when generic phrases like SUV and car and automobile are typed. You will be able to see pictures of this and the nice little video that they posted in the blog description. Jeep is now seizing on its victory with a lighthearted social media campaign by Hugh Detroit called hashtag This Is Not Jeep on its Twitter and Instagram channel that the brand is imagining frustration Jeep enthusiasts got when the pesky rogue emoji appeared. And then also there's some nice images of areas where you would probably see a Jeep with the emoji slapped into them. Quote, the Jeep brand is opposed to this emoji being connected with its name, and we're happy the association has been removed from the latest iOS update, says Oliver Francois, Chief Marketing Officer of Jeep owner Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, said in a statement. We're good-naturedly celebrating its demise with our owners and fans through the social media campaign while firmly making it known that any SUV that does not carry the Jeep brand name cannot pass itself off as one of our vehicles. I wanted to share this just because I thought it was really cute. I think the creative is super nice. I included in our little notes one of the images that they're using, and obviously Josh, I can see right now, is on their Twitter page.
We just talked bad about Twitter, and I'm back on it.
Here we are. But I do think it's really cute. So what do we think, guys?
I mean, I while you were talking about it, I went and I searched the This Is Not Jeep hashtag just to check it out, and they did put a video up a couple days ago and talking about like what you said, and people even in the comments are like, oh, like they're calling Apple out and they're doing a hilarious job, like, you know, making like a lighthearted joke about the whole situation. But it's cool, it's funny, they took advantage of a situation, and you know, it was good branding, I guess.
I wonder what the emails looked like between Jeep and Apple.
Yeah, I mean,
like, hey, wait a minute.
The video that they posted does show.
Well, that's a mock-up. So like
it's not working now, but like how it changes. But yeah, it's cool. I liked it.
What do you think, Len?
I got really nothing to say. You know, I'm trying to because I'm actually looking it up. So I don't understand what the big deal is.
So here you can actually see the image in the little outline packet if you
Yeah, and here's
flip
the-
the page.
Oh, okay.
So
Here's a
the
video.
problem
Because I was looking for it. All right.
the problem is when you type Jeep, you would get suggested the car emoji, which does not look like what a Jeep looks like. So the lighthearted campaign is
This is
Jeeps
not
don't look
Jeep.
like this. Here's an area where a Jeep would be, and here's the car emoji.
This is not. That's great.
I thought it was really cute. Like,
like it,
from
yeah.
a creative standpoint, it's like
Yeah.
it's one of those like brilliant little moments.
Well, it's brilliant, and Jeep people are crazy. I mean, they are. I mean, you know, my
They are
daughter
one
has
of
a
a kind,
Jeep. Not
yeah.
not the Rubicon. She says a regular Cherokee, but like they're crazy. These
Like that,
people.
There's like some like code. Like I had a bunch of friends that had Jeeps. There's just some like Jeep code. If you drive past one, you like
Wave.
them
That's
away.
been going on for years.
Yeah, just
Volkswagen people do the same thing.
Yeah.
But so I drove by somebody yesterday in a Jeep, and this lady had the whole thing like papered up, like beach girl, like the whole Jeep. It looks like wallpaper all around it. Like, so it's taken to a point, and you see like the zombie ones. They're doing. Is this necessary? Is this necessary to drive around your car like it's a clown car? It's not a clown car. It's a Jeep. You know, and I just don't understand.
Brand loyalty runs deep.
That's just crazy. I'm like, oh my god. But anyway, good for you, Jeep. You know, so
There you go.
that is cool. So
Good for you, Jeep.
Yeah.
Well, that's all for today's episode of The Buyer's Journey. Check us out on Comexis.com, YouTube, and anywhere you can get your podcasts. And follow us on Twitter at @buyers_journey. Thanks for tuning in.